Following inputting some more music, I needed to get another soundtrack started, as we only have currently I only had three that were to work with, and we didn't want them repeating too much, like in the pre scenes with along with the UI and grabbing the customs and stuff, because then they become a bit more repetitive and like people want a bit more variation. And as I'm like marketing the soundtrack to go along with the game for sale, I think it's good to have at least 5 songs on there as like an EP length, and for the price it is, that I think it was like definitely worth starting on the track. So the time lapse you're seeing is just a video of that when I was waiting for the RAM to turn up for my new laptop so that I could actually build this game properly, rather than sitting on 4 gigs, because that was really annoying. So I was just sitting all day, and I just started working on that. I took a bell sample of Freesound, which I will say as well, for a lot of a few of the samples, or again most of the songs, a lot of it, not all of it, but at least one sample from each song has come from Freesound. So that's credited. So not all of it is mine, but all the drums and drum come from samples online. But the composition and the like background sounds are all like pre-made by myself and Tom. So just as a disclaimer, that's accredited to them. So this one was one I actually really enjoyed playing, or enjoyed making. It was using like a bell sample. Um, excuse me. Along with some drums and some synth pads, which Alex, when he came in, said to use for this sort of game, that he said suggested would go well with what I'm trying to like produce. So I looked into that and I found a breathless oboe, which I really enjoyed using, and then again used like cymbals, shakers for background, to sort of fill the track up a bit, and managed to get this majority finished in a day, and then had Tom as well look over it and give me a few more pointers, and we gave a good chord progression for this. And the reason, like I knew didn't know how to exactly do a chord progression, but I sort of learned that it's mainly composed of 1, 3s, and 5s within a chord, and then you build up from 1, 3, 5 to 7, and then 6 as well to go. That's sort of the mainly used one. So we use that in how many notes are played for each chord, and like this chord progression gives like a fuller sound to each one. So I wanted to like that go from like a 3 to a 7 to build up, to sort of as this is in the start of the game, to sort of show that the sort of unknowing that like the player is going into, and like the the expectations of what's to come next. And I think that chord progression from this track, Feeling Strange, worked very well with it, and I was really happy with how that turned out. So that was like the final track to done. So all I needed to do then, which I think is in this video as well, there might be bits of it, is just working on the ambient drone soundtrack, which I found a Forestscape sort of trumpet sample from Logic, which I just stretched out, and then added which would be the sort of the main drone for the background, because it doesn't, like the soundtrack drone doesn't want to be, or I don't particularly want it to be much going on with it. So I'd use that as a drone. Took a few made a few drum patterns, which I threw in on intervals. Took some tummy tapping and some cymbals and shakers from previous tracks, which I just filled out now and again, and I tried that in the game, but it wasn't very it didn't feel very kind of high, because obviously it doesn't go with the look of the game of this quite creepy sort of sounding drone. So I found again from FreeCycle, a piano loop, which is nice, like 9 bars long or so, and stretched out to 15 to match the Forestscape out, and it sort of slowed it down a bit, but it was still quite this light-hearted. It was in major chord, which makes the chord sound happier, which I've been learning from doing this. So for a lot of this, going back to it as well, a lot of the production and the chords and for the rest of the track were done in major, so they give that it's like an overall kinder sounding, happier sounding soundtrack, which we want for this game, because it is quite a light-hearted, fun, colourful game. So these are done now, all these finished. So as we're speaking now, all the soundtracks are done and implemented and on the CDs. So then following on from this, now that's done, I can just concentrate on building the game, which is so. After rebuilding that scene and doing a bit more testing and working on small bug fixes across the the past few days after that, which I haven't got many haven't got much video recording of, but is pretty much similar to past videos. So it's just me going for making sure that all the camera views and the like player collisions, UI collision, no, UI stuff, and NPC and interactable objects all then collide. So you've seen a lot of that previously in testing on the video. So there's not much. I don't feel the need to then waste more to blog time and the video time just showing more. So I've done that like it's an ongoing background process. So I don't think it's as necessary to be showing that the whole time and only just new stuff. So this next bit, which you will see on the screen, is inputting the first track that I made, called Exploration, found on SoundCloud and on the CD. And this was just testing on the audio mixer, which can add effects into Unity. So for the music, it's very much like a background sort of ambient, like both the gameplay soundtrack and like the full sound, like music for the pre-scenes and the load scenes. It's quite like ambient and backgroundy, like we want the sound effects to be more prominent and like it's not meant to be more full on. So I was messing around with the audio mixer and putting some like reverb effects on it, more so for the music, and then when I put the sound effects, eventually they'll run through, as you can see from the video, like a different audio, like different segment of the audio mixer, so they can have different effects and be triggered at different times. So then in game, when the audio, like when the sound effects are playing, more reverb and like sort of compression can be added to to the music to sort of to dull it down a bit, so that the sound effects and the gameplay are sort of the forefront of the listening rather than the soundtrack, which we do just want to be in the background. So that was just the start of looking at that audio mixer, but I will eventually, as the week goes further on, be filling around with that more to make sure the sound effects and the music work well into conjunction together. So my next job, which I did a bit of yesterday, was sorting out the tags for the sounds, because obviously we hadn't recorded the sound effects as of yet, but they all need to be, as they're done via colliders, and the animation balls, and they need to be different for when, depending on where Isiko and the NPCs are walking, and whatnot. So I just sorting out the tags of creating a forest floor instead of a floor, and then adding that into the code. So then the floor and all the cases for collisions and triggers in the code was the same for a forest floor. So just copied them over and then made them differently go. So on the ground when he's walking, I did use I took off free sound again. Footsteps noises and ladder climbing noises, just so we can get the workload for actually finding the sound effects and like just getting them for ourselves, because we need very specific ones for a lot of it. We're gonna have to do that ourselves, and we've got a microphone for that. But for overall walking, like there's if I can get a few where it's already preset, then I'm happy to do that by this point, just so the workload becomes smaller, because obviously we've got a limited time frame. So yeah, this is just sorting out the tags, which can then, in these sound effects, can then be repeated for the NPCs. So then it's just like sort of some climb up, some voice lines, like a smaller sound effects needed for the game. So that was so I was just sorting out all the tags for that, so I know where what sound effects can play when those like tags are hit, and via like trigger colliders and normal colliders as well. So just getting that sorted for which will be today's work. We'll be recording the sound effects, so I can actually put them in with ease. So I've made my workload a bit less for today, which I was happy with. So as of yesterday, quite a lot of chunk of my time went out to sorting out building the final scene, and making sure that all worked out with how we wanted to do. So Seal, being an absolute gem, put together the artwork into the scene, because she knows where it all goes, and that was easy for her. So she put that in all in the backgrounds in the right layers and stuff, and then gave the necessary components colliders. But there was still just a few more bits that I had to sort out in terms of like platform colliders, how the movable platforms that went in conjunction with it. So a lot of my day was just like working them out and making sure the game, like the player was able to move everywhere in the scene. And then I started camera ends. I sorted out all the custom points and where they could be put, and making sure that the use inventory script when it was used, it actually put them in the right places and didn't put them in like a faulty place where it sort of broke the game. As cause obviously the eventual script is only done in vectors. So if the collides and like the positions in the scene weren't in the right place, then it could sort of break it a bit, and then it wouldn't be able to be sorted. Um, so that's that was all done for that, and then I sort of created the start script, showing the camera pan, and then the end scripts for each one. So there's obviously two different. If you see by there's like two. There's one on the left side and then one on the right side, and then so the camera follows depending on where the so in the middle of the scene there's rotary system, as I explained. I'll like sort of explain it. There's a middle system rotary, which has the Kudu custom like floating custom on like just to either side of it. So the player chooses where to which side to go with, and they can see that via using like the zoom L2 to see where to see who they want to help and how. And then that, so depending on which way that goes up, it then triggers like so either deletes and then triggers the other one, like vice versa. So the camera doesn't get confused via the two end scripts, so it knows which one to follow, either the bold on the left side or the right side. And just add a few more colliders into the water system, because obviously one that's trickled down onto the flower bed, which is one of the aims of the left side, is helping out get the water reservoir working so that the flowers can grow for one of the villagers. So I had to still made a water particle effect splashing, which I added into the flower bed, and then gave like a flower animation growth when the water hits it, and then made sure the water was destroyed on if it collided with anything else, like the florist floor. If it went past down the scene, I made like a finite cut off point where it would be destroyed, because obviously each particle is a clone. So even just testing it out where they were destroyed at the start of the scene, it may look quite slow, but I think once it's built, that would sort of bypass that and put a lot of processing power into that, rather than running the engine as well, because obviously that takes up a lot of it. So yeah, that was like my chunk of the day done up to the early hours, but that was fine. The scene was finally done for that, so we just need sort of an end and like animations, UI, speech, sort of like and like thing to do, which wouldn't take too long. So, but the bulk of testing and developing for the final scene is done. So now it's just going back through, and so today's job will just be doing the sound effects and sorting out some of the other scenes, just making it all strings together and the game plays nicely. So I think we're good chunks into finish, and I'm quite happy with how it's gone so far. It's just about getting it absolutely finished now. So we'll crack on with that today.